Hey guys, David Belmont from TechonTarget. Today I'm doing a review on the Glock 19 Generation 5. Just so you guys know my background on this, I've been shooting Glocks for about 7 years now. Big fan of them. They're not the only gun I'd shoot, they're just the ones I happen to have. One of the things that I always look for in a firearm is that it goes bang every time, which Glock does, at least in my experience. But the Generation 5, I've had this now for about a year, and in a year I've put about 9,000 rounds through it. It has been incredibly dependable, has done everything I'd loved it to do, and there's just a couple changes between this, the Gen 4, the Gen 3s, that you guys might be interested in if you're thinking about getting one, or you just want to know more about guns. So anyways, like I said, I've put a few rounds downrange on this thing. I have done some modifications on it, so I do apologize. I'm not showing you a totally stock Glock. But I did add some suppressor height sights. I occasionally shoot this suppressed, as well as Generation 1 Trigicon RMR RM06. It's a red dot. I believe it's the 3 MOA dot. I'm pretty happy with it. The other modification that I do to all my Glocks is I undercut the trigger guard. If you do get a Glock, I highly recommend, if you're comfortable doing this. If not, take it to a gunsmith where they can do it properly. Have them undercut the slide here. It's worth it. You get a higher grip on the gun. I just find that it gives me more control without necessarily doing anything to the firearm that will cease proper function. So first and foremost, there's a couple different things that you will notice right off the bat that are different on a Generation 5 Glock versus a Generation 4 or even 3. First of those is the evil finger grooves that everyone hated are gone. I don't know which hand they used to figure out where those finger grooves were supposed to go, but they were never in the right spot, at least not for me. So Glock finally listened to their consumer base and said, well, we're going to get rid of the finger grooves. So that's pretty sweet. I enjoy that. They still have the option when you buy a brand new Glock. It does come with the back straps, so you will be able to adjust the grip to the size that you want it to be. I have very small hands, so I actually don't run any back strap on this, just the built-in one. But you can expand it out. I believe there's 4 different sizes that come with it. In fact, in case you didn't know this, quick tip, there is a little plastic weird shaped thing that is holding all of those back straps that comes with it. And it has a pin through the center. Actually has 2. One of them's kind of hard to see. The little one that's hard to see is actually a replacement for this in case you lose this pin. And then the big long one that's fixed to the holder is actually the punch you need to punch that out. So it comes with the tools you need to change out the back strap, which is pretty sweet. Moving up to the top a little bit, another big change Glock has done is they've included ambi slide release this time, which is awesome. As a left-handed shooter, I absolutely love the ability to let the slide go left-handed, or if you're right-handed, you can let it go right-handed as well. So that's pretty awesome feature there. I've kind of wondered why Glock didn't do it sooner, but they finally did. The magazine catch, as with all Glocks, I believe Generation 3 and up, the magazine catch is reversible. It is not ambidextrous, but it is reversible. So you can pull this out. If you want a video on that, just hit me up in the comments and I can show you how to do it. But you can switch out your mag release to work for us wrong-handed people, if you're one of those. The only modification made on the Gen 5 that I am really not a fan of, Glock was attempting to build a pistol that would let them get a defense contract, a U.S. defense contract. And one of the requirements is that it had a flared mag well with finger grooves to be able to remove a stuck magazine. The idea behind it is you're out in the mud and the grit, slaying stuff, because that's what the military does, and your magazine gets stuck when you're trying to do a reload. This way you can get your fingers up inside of the mag well and strip the magazine out in order to be able to put a new one in. I get the concept behind it. Doesn't work so well with this pistol, to be entirely honest. Speed reloads become a problem. It just gives you one more thing to catch the front of the mag on. This is live ammo, so I'm not going to put it in, but it's just one more place that it can catch when you're trying to do a reload. So something to be aware of. The other thing that it kind of ruins is I already had a magwell I liked, and I used the Agency Arms magwell here that you see on my Gen 4, and I love this magwell. It's their low profile magwell. It really doesn't change the width of the gun at all, but it gives you the added benefit of if you do miss on a reload, it just helps guide it in a little bit. It's smooth, it's metal, there's nothing for it to hang up on. With Generation 5, because they built in the flare at the bottom of the pistol grip, it's not possible at this time anyways, without some heavy modification, to put any kind of aftermarket magwell adapter onto your firearm. So not a huge fan of that, something to consider, but it definitely doesn't detract from the fact that Glock once again knocked it out of the park with an accurate, reliable pistol. For those of you who aren't familiar, Glock has a family of 9mm pistols for double stack, which I believe just includes the 26, 19, and the 17. They've stopped making the 34 and the 17L, but all of them are great. If you do get a Glock 19, for all of your extra magazines, I advise getting Glock 17 magazines, because Glock 17 magazines will work in the 19 as well as the 17. Really any 9mm double stack they will work in, all the way down to the 26. So super happy with the gun. There's a couple differences as far as parts compatibility is concerned. One of the reasons that I love Glocks so much is 1.5 million people make parts for Glocks. So if I'm replacing barrels or want sights or triggers or anything, there's 1 million companies out there. Just do a Google search and you'll be able to find all sorts of aftermarket parts if you want to make your gun look cool, which is very important when you're on the range, is looking cool. Couple things though, the only things that I have found that work interchangeably between a Gen 5 and a Gen 4 are obviously your sights. Glock sights are Glock sights anymore, so they are going to work no problem between the Generation 4 and the Generation 5. No guarantee on the Gen 3. I don't actually have my Gen 3 that I used to have anymore, so I didn't have a chance to look through all that. The going internally, a few things are going to be different internally. Obviously, your trigger was one of the big things they changed out. Glock significantly improved the trigger in the Generation 5 over the Generation 4. It's the same pull weight, but if you are familiar with Glocks at all, you will know that the Generation 4, they did not do as great of a job as they could have on that compared to the Generation 3 trigger. Generation 3 had a very crisp 5-pound trigger that I absolutely loved. Glock really was selling on the defensive aspect of it, and defensive pistols generally have a heavier trigger pull. So they went up to, I think, what they said was a 6-pound trigger on the Generation 4. It was really more like 7 or 8, which is kind of getting on the heavy end, and it was just mushy. When you pull it back, and you feel it tighten up, you think, all right, trigger's about to break. Oh, but no, there's more, and finally click. That was the Generation 4. The Gen 5 has a very crisp trigger. I'll show it to you in a sec. But there's a couple different things they've done in here. They've completely rebuilt the plunger system for the extractor. I never really had issues with Glocks having issues with extracting before, but the idea behind it is with the beveled plunger on it, more grit, more gunk can get in here, and they will still be able to extract and function the moving parts of the extractor. So that's pretty cool. They made some improvements to that. They've also changed the striker. The striker before was a triangular blade almost. You cut that really distinctive flat line into the back of your primers. They've actually gone to a rounded, more teardrop shaped striker. I've never had any issues with failure to fire because of the firearm. Obviously some ammunitions are going to cause issues. So they're making improvements. I'm not really sure what they were fixing on that, but it behaves exactly the same, so I've been happy. Not much difference up there on the slide. Barrels are interchangeable between Gen 4 and Gen 5, which that is sweet. I only have one threaded barrel for my Glocks at the moment, and I switch that back and forth between my Generation 4 Glock 19 and my Generation 5, and that's lovely, and they're backwards compatible too. I'll stick my Gen 5 barrel into my Generation 4 pistol as well. So obviously your barrel is one of the most important pieces of your firearm, and Glock has knocked it out of the park on the Generation 5 barrel, in my opinion anyways. They've got a 2-piece insert competition barrel in the Glocks. Not that it makes a huge difference at the range most of you guys shoot at, or myself as well. But the big change, this is huge, that Glock has done that I absolutely love, is Glock has gone away from polygonal rifling in their pistols. They are now shooting with standard rifling, which means all you reloaders and bullet casters out there, you don't have to go drop another $120 the day you buy your Glock for a new barrel. You can shoot whatever you want through it right out of the gate. These things will eat anything. I've been throwing Wolf steel case at it, and cheapo Remington training ammunition and reman and hand loads, and everything I have thrown in this thing shoots. If you are a reloader, they say don't do it, but I have found that I do a full resize on my brass, my 9mm brass, before I throw it in the gun. Otherwise what will happen is you'll get a lockup. The gun will still work, but you'll need to drop the magazine and fire a round down range to get that last round out, because you won't be able to rack the slide back, most likely. Maybe you're stronger than I am. But standard rifling is huge, plus it's a great barrel, great accuracy. Moving down into the frame of the Glock, pretty much everything's different in the frame. I have not tried taking an entire trigger group out of a Gen 4 and putting it into a Gen 5 to see if that would work. And I'm not going to take this apart in this video. I apologize, I just did that the other day and I don't want to do it again. But when you do take out the trigger housing group here for the Gen 5 and compare it to a Gen 4, they are now using a leaf spring instead of a coil spring to provide tension on that, as well as the reset. So none of the parts are going to be compatible if you are changing parts out inside of the trigger housing group. That being said, like I said, I don't know if you can just drop a Generation 4 trigger group into a Gen 5. I have not tried that. If anyone knows, leave a comment below. Overall, like I said, pretty happy. Let me show you that trigger real quick I was talking about earlier. The Gen 4 had that long take up and then a little bit of mush. The Gen 5 is just take up. All right, we're ready for it to break. Break. It's a much crisper trigger. It's about the, it's pretty much exactly the same pull weight, but there's no mush. You pick it up, and the second you start feeling tension there, the next movement you make is going to break the trigger and send the round down range. So I'm super happy with that. For those of you guys who want the specs on this, you're too lazy to Google it yourself, I guess. The Gen 5 is 7.28 inches overall in length. It is the exact same size as the Generation 4 Glock 19. It's 1.34 inches wide, which I know a lot of people say Glocks are too clunky and too ugly to conceal carry, blah, 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 blah. Yes, the slide is much thicker than you would get on a single stack, but Glocks are more or less the same width as 1911s and things like that when you start accounting for how big the grip is. So really, it's a great gun to conceal carry. I carry this in appendix carry at my 11 o'clock since I am a lefty. But same dimensions as before. It's 21.52 ounces unloaded, and it's about 31 ounces with 15 round mag and one in the chamber fully loaded. So it is a little bit heftier gun. Now you got to have the right belt and the right gear and the right holsters if you are going to conceal carry it. But I also shoot competitions with this. I shoot carry optics for USPSA. I shoot centerfire pistol optic for Steel Challenge, and it works just as well. I use the same gun for everything. Beware the man with one gun, I think is the saying. But like I said, overall, super happy. Love to hear what you guys think about the Glock. If you think there's something better out there, which I'm sure there is, but this is, for all intents and purposes, an excellent pistol. The two downsides that I want to say about the Gen 5, not to leave it on a sour note, is one, their attempt at a Megawell adapter sucked in my opinion. It's not a huge hindrance with enough training, but it wasn't as well thought out as it could be. And two, as Glocks gain popularity, their price is going up. Glocks used to be one of the most affordable pistols on the market in my opinion, for the quality anyways. And in my opinion now they are still worth the money, but they are definitely more prohibitive if you don't have a larger budget. If you're looking for something similar, I've shot the CZP-10C works pretty well. They claim that it is the same dimensions as the Glock. I have not found that to be true, so be very careful if you are thinking you're going to keep all your Glock holsters and get a CZ. You will probably still have to buy new holsters anyways, depending on what type of holsters they are. But like I said, the Gen 5 is the exact same dimensions as the Gen 4. I use all the same holsters between the two of them, and it works great. So, hope to see you guys on the range. As always, stay safe and stay on target, and thanks for watching.